So the phone, I was actually curious about it. So it was one of these phones. Have you seen the phone that it like folds down?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it almost resembles an old flip phone, but then when you open it, it's one big screen.
Yeah.
So
Which I call
imagine
bullshit on.
I saw it. It looked cool, but then I saw another one that like imagine you're holding your phone, and then you got another phone and you put it next to it, and then you folded them together. So it's like vertical fold.
Okay. Huh,
So it's literally like if you're to those watching, if we record this, put this on there. So like it would be like this one big screen this way, like a big ass square screen, and then you would fold it, and then there's like a single screen right here.
Wow. Okay.
And that cost $1,800, and I was kind of curious about it. And then there happened to be a guy there who I knew.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there'd be a few people there.
But no, the sales rep, apparently a guy I know actually was one of the salesmen that were there. So while the people he was selling to were like looking over something, he came over and said hi. And I asked him about it. I was like, hey, just curious, like what's the selling point of that? And the first things out of his mouth were, don't get that.
That's awesome.
And I kind of was like, what's the purpose of the folding thing in the big screen? Is it just for the sake of being cool? And he's like, it's just for the sake of being cool. And after a while, that crease where it folds starts to show.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Well, yeah.
So
I
he was
mean,
like,
yeah,
do not get that. I was like,
it would, right? All the folding screens. It's like it's not there. I'm sure maybe someday, we'll get there. But
I think the one that kind of folds forward like the old flip phone, there's something to that because like it's kind of more compact.
maybe, yeah. But I mean, in my opinion, it's kind of like when touchscreens back when we were in high school. It's like, okay, yeah, it's really cool and all the cool kids have it, but in reality, the technology isn't there yet, and it's still kind of shitty. But
Sure.
It might get there someday. I'm just now looking. Can you hear me all right? Because I just realized my cat's chewed through my fucking thing that I'm wearing right now.
I can hear you fine. As long as your normal mic's working, then I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I mean, it should be.
Well, I hope
We'll
so.
find out. We'll find out.
All right.
That's the music intro right there. Kind of a boring week for me. Thank you for asking. Went to a kind of a convention of sorts with my company.
Oh,
They
welcome
had
to the Fake Philosophers.
God damn, yeah.
I'm Mike.
Yes.
That's Mitch. Go on.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for that. No, it was an annual kind of service. All the guys that work on generators, they get together and they have like this annual meeting at this hotel in town, and this was my first one because I'm new at the company, and it was kind of cool. Got to meet a lot of people I hadn't met yet, and yeah, and,
Cool. Nice.
I drank way too much. And
As you should.
It was the first time in a long time that I woke up and I was like, holy hell, I drank way too much. And now I have to go to day 2 of this like meeting like thing, and I have to like talk about logistics and all the software that we use and do more like training and stuff. And I woke up drunk. I woke up at drunk, and like it started at like 8 a.m. but breakfast started at 7. I woke up at 6:30 like shit. We have a problem. But
Yep.
But they don't know that, and they'll never know that. What's awesome is like at the like, because they're all like, blue collar, like, work with their hands, field technician kind of guys, and they all got into it like that night. So it's kind of cool. Like everybody that morning was just kind of like, woof, all right, well,
Just quiet. Yeah.
yeah.
No one say anything. No one in the room say anything.
Yeah, no one will know. Anyway. But that was the first half of my week. It was kind of interesting that they would do it on a Monday
During the
and
week.
Tuesday. Not at the end of the week, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Kind of besides that, kind of boring. Kind of cruising around North Carolina, getting the lay of the land more. I kind of like this state. It's pretty cool.
Good. I'm glad that it's working out for you.
We touched on it a little bit last week, but I want to revisit it. You guys are getting snow and shit.
So that storm's pretty much coming past, but yeah, it actually so it does snow it didn't snow in Azusa where I live, but it snowed in Rancho. And as you know, it does occasionally snow in Rancho, like for a couple minutes. Mm-hmm. But it actually was going for a few hours. So Southern California, if you don't live on the mountain, that's a big deal, and everyone was losing their fucking minds.
Yeah.
But it was cool.
I mean,
it was cool.
Even in spots in the high desert like Hesperia, Victorville, the whole Apple Valley area up there, like they would get snow sometimes, and it wasn't a big deal. Like that was desert,
Yeah.
and they would still get snow, and their pools would freeze over, and it's like no big deal. But for the Inland Empire, the outside of LA area, for them to get snow never happens. I mean,
but I think the big deal was when it does happen, because it has happened. It lasts for like 15, 20 minutes. Everyone runs outside and takes their photos, and it's over. But
never
this one
enough to actually stick, never enough to collect.
Yeah, this one actually lasted for several hours. And even like, the Cucamonga Peak, like the mountains right near there.
I've heard of them.
Even my cynical brain, I looked up and like, I was like, holy shit, the snow is caked on there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
yeah.
Instead of like being kind of dotty, like kind of, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but kind of sprinkled on, it was like caked on there. Even I was like, oh shit.
Kind of like when I try to grow a beard. It's patchy. It's like, not all over.
Yeah.
And then you look at Mike's beard and you're like, oh, okay, now that's how it's supposed to look.
It's very much Mike's beard snow on the mountains.
Yeah. Mike's beard snow.
Yes.
I love it.
No, it was cool.
So you watching any shows, any movies lately? Anything new?
I started watching The Last of Us finally on Sunday.
Haven't started it, but yeah, I heard
I need to rewatch it because I was also day drinking and I fell asleep. So I need to rewatch that. We only watched one episode. I only remember parts of it, so I can't really talk to it. But while we're on the subject, I got pissed off at the grocery store again.
Okay, yeah.
I have a couple of pissed off things to talk about. So this was interesting. It wasn't a first. It was a first and not a first. So it was one of those things like I had alcohol in my cart, but I only had like 4 or 5 items. But of course, the store is fucking busy. And I was like, shit. Mm-hmm. And so I couldn't go to self-checkout. Whatever.
Was this a Vons? Was this a Target? This
was a Vons. This was a Vons.
Okay.
And so I was in this line it was pretty long, and this guy walked over and opened up the express lane and waved some guy who had like 2 bags of ice. He's like, come over here. And so he hadn't turned his light on yet, but I kind of snuck in there too behind the ice guy. And I just kind of gave him a wave. I was like, you're open now, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm open. I was like, all right, cool. Started loading up. And no one else really noticed that it was open right away for whatever reason. So I was like, cool. Lucky me.
Score. Yeah.
Yeah, so I start loading up, and he finishes with the guy with the ice, and he kind of looks around, and he calls out. He's like, hey, 15 and under is open over here to like people. Just people. 15 and under is open. Mm-hmm. And I actually said out loud, I was like, hey, out of curiosity, if someone came down here with more than 15, like, what do you do?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
And before he could answer, a woman pulled up with a shopping cart full.
No.
And he kind of, because like this is literally as I said it, right when I finished my sentence, she walked up, and he kind of just went and kind of gave himself a chuckle.
Yeah.
And then she asked some question about something she had, and he was like, yeah, that's okay. And he just kind of looked at me and shook his head and just kept bringing my shit in. So he didn't say anything. And it just it made me mad, one, that bitch, when he said out loud, 15 and under is open. So there's no confusion.
Okay.
So that kind of irritated me, but like the look on his face of just like, and just kind of, because if he wanted to answer, he now can't, because she's there. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, as we've discussed, I think a lot of times it's just like, why start the fight? So he just let her start loading up, and he's like, whatever.
Do you think there are rules that like society has like created these rules that like only apply to like the civilized people? The 15 and items and under is like the perfect example. I'm trying to think of other ones, but it's like, hey, 15 items and under in this line, please. And the people that are civilized and, nice and civil and common sense and decent human beings are like, oh shit, well, I got 17 items. I should either put something back or go over there, because I'm not allowed over there. Meanwhile, the other scum-sucking pieces of shit that with 30 items are like, fuck that, and they just go into that line.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting subject.
For what? For no repercussions. There's
And
nothing that'll happen, but
and
the
then
only people that suffer are the civilized people.
And 9 times out of 10, the clerk is not going to correct them.
Never. Like
I have seen it. I've seen it happen. I have seen it happen.
Okay.
Where it's I think the trick is to catch them before they start loading.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm sorry, it's 15 items on, please.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me. It's express lane.
15.
Yeah. But once they start loading, no.
And then what? The customer can look right back at them and say no and start loading their shit up. Or are they going to say no? Like, this is register going to... They're not going to do it.
I am, as we know, a staunch believer in following society's rules. But if I were a cash register worker, I'm not having that fight.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I'll ring you up. I'll ring you up. Whatever.
So you ask the question, then why is that rule there? And then the question really is, well, it seems to me that these civilized people, these decent people, create these rules for themselves, and they kind of move society forward. Meanwhile, the scum-sucking, welfare collecting pieces of shit just do whatever they want. Okay, maybe not welfare. So I'm sorry.
I was like, Jesus.
Maybe not welfare, but you know.
You're right though. There are like the quote unquote, like they're almost like suggested rules. Like they're rules, but if you don't do it, no one's going to stop you.
Right. Then why have them?
I think, I don't know. I think it's more like an idea. Like we're going to put this up with the ideal hope that people are going to be human beings and behave. And then when someone doesn't, you're like, fine.
It's like, it could be, you could flip it around and be like, okay, everybody that's civil, look at that piece of shit. That's that person. Hey, that's an example of one of those people that are not civil and not decent, and they're just pieces of shit. Look at them. They're so like wrapped up in themselves. It boils down to two things. One, they're either that conceited or they're that ignorant and they have no idea and they just have never learned the rules. Either way, it's pretty bad. But either way, everyone gets to look at him and think that's one of those people. For what? I mean, there's no real reason. You'll never see them again. And they'll come back to the store and shop with no...
And that person gives no fucks what you think about them.
No fucks at all. Yeah, so why? I don't know. Why?
That's the problem with shitty people, is that they don't give a fuck if you think they're shitty.
And right now, it seems that the shitty people are the minority. Right now. And the decent people are the majority. It just seems that, the shitty people are more because they're louder, usually.
I remember a police officer there was an incident at the bar, and what he said was, and this applied, it hit me pretty hard. He's like, 5% of people who go out and drink are the bad ones, the shitty ones, the ones you remember. But 95% of them are fine. But you remember the 5% of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Speaking of shitty
I remember once going to, like, an express line opened, and I had way more than 15. And I went to one of the packed lines, and it was, like, not, one of the regular lines, and the express line was wide open, and I went to one of the regular lines, one of the really long lines. And the express guy came over and says, you can come over. And I said, I actually have, like, 20 items. And the dude looked at me like I was crazy. Like, come on, it's fine. Like
I think you told me that before, and I think in that case it's fine because like he's open. No, you're not hurting anybody. Like, just come on over. He invited you. He invited you. That's different.
You know what? You're right. Yeah, but I know there have been times too when I'm like, I'm sorry, I just counted. I actually have 16 items. Is that okay? And I'm sorry. Or like I'll say, look, I'm sorry. I actually only have 17 items, not 15. That's my bad. Do you want me to put them all back in my basket, or can we just? Yeah, and like you give them that option. Meanwhile, everyone else is like, this is conceited, holier than thou piece of shit. Just put your shit on the conveyor belt like everyone else.
Right. It's almost like the speed limit. Like the speed limit in California is 65, but if you're on the freeway, everyone's going at least 70, 75, and generally speaking, everyone's okay with it. Like I would be okay. A fast lane or the express lane, if you had like 16 items, I'm gonna be like, all right, there's a buffer.
See, I thought about that. I was trying to think of other examples of like those rules that are for the decent people, and the decent people follow them, and then we all know that one piece of shit that doesn't. I thought about the speed limit, and the problem is that's an actual like law thing. You can actually get pulled over and cited for it.
That's fair.
A better example I thought of was the left lane, or the fast lane, if you will, being for passing only. That to me is a perfect example of that's a rule that society has that decent people follow. We know that the fast lane is for passing only and for hauling ass. It's Autobahn rules in that lane. And if you are driving slow in that lane, you are a conceited, self-centered piece of shit, and you probably collect welfare, and everyone knows it.
What's kind of funny about that, it's I had a friend and I used to call it the Hillary Clinton concept. It's either you know what you're doing is wrong, but you don't care, or you don't know what you're doing and you shouldn't be driving.
That's
either way you shouldn't be behind the wheel. Yeah,
that's what I was saying about you're either that ignorant or that conceited.
Yeah,
and neither is very good.
No, and no, that's because even though it's not like there's not like a sign like the express lane, excuse me, but it's kind of a generic rule. I remember even in taking driver's ed.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to cut you off. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm going to cut you off. I don't mean to cut you off, but there are signs. Left lane for passing.
No, you're right. In certain areas, there will be a sign, especially if it's like a 2-lane road.
Yeah.
But like a 3-lane highway, for instance, there's not, quote unquote, a sign. But I remember in driving school when I was learning to drive, they said, if you're going to be passing or driving faster, you should be in the left lane. If you're going to drive slower, stay in the right lane.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a thing. And I noticed, I'm not sure if this was maybe just something I started to notice, but I feel like it's a newer thing, that I've noticed that trucks, especially like California highways, there's normally like 3 lanes, sometimes 4, and a carpool lane on the left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've noticed, carpool lane aside, that trucks, big rigs, have been driving in the middle lane.
Yeah, okay.
A lot more often. I don't know if it's a new thing, or maybe I just noticed it recently, but they've been driving in the middle lane a lot more often, which would normally annoy me because I'm like, you get in the fucking right lane. But I started thinking about it, and I was like, that's actually the ideal lane for the big rig. Because then you can get in the left lane to pass them, and they're not slowing down the right lane for people who are trying to exit.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
And because a lot of times the big rigs will go like 65, 70, so it's not like they're going super slow. At least for leadfoots like me.
So only because I've towed trailers and I've dealt with trucks in California, I know that it is law that they're not supposed to go over 55. If you have 3 axles, you're not allowed to go over 55. So if you're towing a trailer or something, you're not supposed to go over 55. And as far as the lanes go, they're not allowed in the far left lane. They can go in any other lane, and usually they usually stick to the right lane because that's the slowest, and that's where. In fact, me and my dad always talked about if you're gonna drive and like zone out and like either like sorry, but if you're going to be on your phone or text or whatever, or if you're listening to a podcast and you just want to zone out while you're on the highway, stay in the far right lane because that's where all the trucks are, and they're slow to stop and they're slow to accelerate, and it's a real like easy kind of flowing lane. Whereas the left lane where the people are going faster, they stop faster and they accelerate faster. So but I remember all of that. But yeah, I mean, so technically trucks could be in the far right and the middle lane, but they're just not allowed in the left lane.
I've heard it's like they can't be in the left half. Like hypothetically, if there's 4 lanes, they can't go in the left too. I've heard that too.
Okay, yeah.
I do think
contrary to North Carolina, I don't think there's any of that law in here at all, because I've been passed by semi trucks in 2-lane highway. I'm in the right lane being passed by trucks on the left, and they stay in the left and they just keep going. They haul ass out here. They don't give a fuck.
You know what? It might not be safe, but at least they're not holding anybody back. I'm fine with it.
It's efficient as shit. I tell you what.
I do. So I'll say her name because she's a sweetheart. Hope, our old friend Hope. I remember on Facebook, she made a post and it made me laugh. I might have actually chuckled out loud because normally I'm the kind of guy, I have a lead foot. I'm like, I'm in the left lane. Get the fuck out of my way.
Yep.
She posted something saying like, I'm paraphrasing it now, I'm being dramatic with it, but it was pretty much like, to the driver who was honking at me while I was driving like an old woman in the right lane, this is my lane. I'm driving slow. She was like, go around me. This is my lane. She's like, this is my lane to drive slow, not yours. Stop honking at me. Get the fuck around me. I was like, respect.
I sometimes wonder if I'm a hypocrite, but then I'm like, I don't think so, because if I'm in the right lane, that means I'm going my speed. Whatever I want to do, it's my slow speed. And if someone's right on my ass when I'm in the right lane, guess what? I'm going to slow down because go around. If I'm in the left lane and someone's going slow, I'm going to tailgate the shit out of them. Believe that. It's like, I mean, it's again, it's a societal thing, and I'm a dick and I know it, but yeah.
No, I think if everyone, I might have mentioned this before. There was an article I read that if everyone was less selfish on the freeway and in traffic would actually be better. It's not like just some idealistic thing. It's like he actually laid out like all these things. If everyone drove less selfish, there would be very little traffic jams. I mean, some places where there's like funnels and shit, you can't do much, but just general traffic would be a lot better.
I remember reading something about traffic in Tokyo. Because for a while I was researching traffic because I'm like, why is LA so bad? So I did like a deep dive into traffic around the world and why is it that LA is so specifically bad. But one of the cities I followed was Tokyo, and it was a city with more people in a smaller space, but they had like one of the best transit systems in the world, mostly because of public transit. They have a lot of trains and subways and shit. But one of the things that this article was talking about was that the Japanese have this culture, this developing culture of being constantly aware of everything around, of the other people around you. Maybe not everything, but the people around you, what they're doing, where they're going, and whatnot. And they've bred this culture of just constantly being aware of what everyone else is doing. And because of that, there's a symbiotic kind of flow that they have, and it translates into the traffic. It's an interesting theory, but I believe it. There's no real way to prove it, but I believe it. Yeah,
I believe it. Yeah.
So one of the things at this meeting that we had was safety meeting. The HR safety guys come up and they're all like,
yeah.
So we work with high voltage, utility voltage. Enough power to supply a whole building, few buildings in some cases. Safety comes up and they're like, hey, guess what? The biggest killer of you guys is not the electricity. I thought it would have been the electricity, but no, it's you guys in your fucking trucks because you guys are idiots when you drive. And it was actually kind of hilarious. It's like, of all the dangerous shit you guys work on, the biggest problem is your trucks because people, I mean, I'm one who believes that half of all accidents, if you're in 6 accidents, 3 of them might be your fault. But I'm willing to bet like 4 of them are other people.
That's fair, I guess.
But they threw this statistic at us. It was kind of interesting. He said that if you're texting and driving, you're 6 times more likely to get into an accident than if you were drunk and driving. Yeah, I'm gonna let that stat sit with you for a bit and mull it over.
Was that a study or was that just like a thing?
They said per this acronym's study,
okay, so it was a study.
They came out with that if you're texting and driving, you're 6 times more likely than if you're drunk and driving.
Go on.
Yeah, and I'm curious, and I was going to bring that up because I thought you might have some input.
I think there's truth to that.
I'll tell you what, if there is truth to that, I'm about to get drunk every time I drive.
I'm sure they would support and endorse that as well.
Oh, I'd be fired in like negative 2 hours.
Right. No, so because I'm thinking about it, and as somebody who is guilty of texting and driving, I will admit it. And somebody who, even though now having gotten older, I've learned and I try not to do it anymore. Someone who has driven drunk when I shouldn't have, I've done that as well. Mm-hmm. At least I feel like when you're driving drunk, at least in my occasions in the past when I was younger, I knew I was drunk, and so I was trying to focus.
Ooh, okay, yeah, kind of like you compensate.
Yeah, and it's not like, granted, it's not like the focus is great, but at least like there was times where I knew I was drunk and I had to drive, and quote unquote had to drive. There's options, but at the time I had to drive, quote unquote.
Yeah, right.
To where it's like, okay, slap the face, get it together, Mike, hands on the wheel, mind over matter, let's do this. Does that mean I was still a good driver? No, but at least in my brain, like I was focusing. Whereas if you're sober and you're texting, your eyes are literally leaving the road.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Even if your phone, you're holding it up here, it's still your eyes are leaving the road.
Yeah. So we should hit a disclaimer right now. We're not saying that because texting is more dangerous, that drunk driving is suddenly safe.
It becomes okay. Yeah.
They're both fucking dumb. But it turns out that texting and driving might actually be more dangerous than drunk driving. So that's what
I think there's something to that. I think there's something to that.
I do too. I absolutely do. I mean, if you look at so what I quickly discounted initially was like, all right, hang on. Is this study, did it get its results by saying, okay, we're going to look at all the car accidents in a year in this section, and we're going to see if is it a result of people being drunk, or is it a result of people texting and whatever. So, it turns out 6 times more it was people texting. And I don't think that would have counted, because if that were the case, I feel like it would have been much more texting over, you know what I mean?
Maybe.
If you look, because of how hyper the laws are about drunk driving, if you get caught drunk driving, that's your license. That's like, you're fucked pretty much. I mean, at least it was in California. I don't know about over here, but,
no, yeah.
So that's why I was kind of like, I don't think that's the case. I think they must have done some study about alertness and reaction time and eyes on the road and whatnot. But
well, now I thought of something, and now I'm going back and forth in my head going, wait, which way do I think? Because at first I was thinking maybe the texting is 6 times higher. It's not significantly higher, because maybe they did something really stupid, and instead of admitting that they did something stupid, they said I was texting. So that would stack it higher in the poll.
Right.
But then I was thinking, go on.
No, that'd be collecting numbers after the fact, kind of thing. Not actually looking at the instance itself.
Well, my point is, like, because the instance, let's say I just reached for a French fry, swerved, got in a car accident, and I didn't want to tell the police officer that I reached for a French fry, so I said I was texting. That's my point. Yeah. So on the record, the reason why the car accident happened was because of texting. But at the same time, that's where I'm going back and forth in my head now. Even saying I was texting makes you look dumb. Mm-hmm. So I would probably make something else up. But I don't know. That's one of those things you can't really prove. Like, you can't prove something that the accident was due to texting unless, like, you had them on a dash cam or some shit like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, so I think I found this is just a fucking blog. Then, this isn't okay. It's just someone's opinion. On the thing. I mean, I Googled texting. What did I Google? Texting 6 times higher than drunk driving, and the results is just all like, oh shit, yeah, no, this study came out 6 times more dangerous, etc. I can look into that and find exactly how they conducted the study. Sure. For how much popularity this is getting and how no one's really arguing it, I'm gonna believe it. I'm gonna assume this is pretty legit, because
I think it is.
Because by now, definitely, like, Ben Shapiro would be out there and be like, let me tell you why this study is wrong. First of all, this was conducted in a hyper suburb of Minnesota and the blah, 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 so that's why I'm assuming this is probably right.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. But, I mean, okay, I remember hearing some commercial a couple years back in California, a radio commercial, where it was like, hey, did you know the average text takes 13.2 seconds to write out and send? That means when you're texting and driving, you're not looking at the road for 13.2 seconds. Go ahead, close your eyes for 13 seconds and see what it's like. And I remember thinking, no, that's not what it's like. I'm looking up and down, bitch. Like, first of all, like, don't come at me with this fake argument. Like, make a good argument,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
stupid. That's dumb. No one's writing a full text while they're,
Yeah, and then here I am on the 210 with my eyes closed for 13 seconds. God knows where I went, but...
Let me prove this man wrong.
I'm still alive.
Oh, boy.
But, side note, I've never believed in the, when people say drive safe, whatever. I mean, I hear about all the fatalities I hear in traffic accidents. Well, okay, no, I do drive safe. Let me clarify. Why I never believed telling someone to drive safe did any good. Because anytime I hear about traffic fatalities, people dying and rear-ending and stuff, it's always the people that are rear-ended that are like dying and like suffering the worst injuries. It's always the people that are driving like fuckheads that end up being fine. It's always the drunk driver that escapes without a bruise, right? You know, that isn't that thing. But
I think it's just more of the positive thoughts, like drive safe. Like it's like have a nice flight, as if you're in control.
Yeah, you might as well tell an actor good luck. It's fucked up. But
I guess.
I haven't acted in anything in so long, Mike.
I thought about that recently. How I want to get on the stage at some point again.
There are a few community theaters out here, and I've been looking.
I've been casually looking at theaters around here, and the few auditions I found were like plays I had no interest in.
Oh, like Romeo and Juliet and The Foreigner, and
I wouldn't mind doing. So I will say this: I wouldn't mind doing Romeo and fuck Our Town, yeah. I wouldn't mind doing Romeo and Juliet again now, because one, I'd have to suck up my ego and realize I can't audition for Mercutio anymore.
Yeah,
but I think it would be interesting playing the older characters now, having played the younger character when I was younger.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And that'd be kind of cool.
Well, I mean, that's kind of one of the major themes of Romeo and Juliet, right? Is the older characters looking at these young kids and thinking, dude, we've been there. And, you know, so you can do a little even deeper dive on the characters there.
Oh, God.
My problem still is, like, if I go out and audition for a show, I have to go to my work and say, hey, I can't work these days. And then I have to tell them why, which, fuck.
Yeah.
I'm about to tell a bunch of Southern mechanics why I can't come. I can't work that weekend. I've got cancer, and it's
I'm going to my AA meetings.
Yeah, AA meetings
for the next 3 weeks, Friday and Saturday nights, and Sunday mornings.
You know what the worst of it is? Like most of the guys, I'll be honest, like most of the guys that are like super cool, and like the ones that aren't will still be super cool because they'll be like, dude, you're in a play, we're gonna come see that shit. Believe that. We're gonna give you shit for it for the next like year, but we're gonna come see it.
You know what? I depending on the play, of course. I actually think, because I've been in the situation where, like, when I'm working at the bar and I was in a play when I was younger, that some of the regulars were kind of actually like interested, like, oh, you do theater? I'm like, yeah, I'm doing this play. When is it? I'm kind of curious. Like, I want to come see it. And they didn't give me any shit. And so I think like you'd be surprised that they'd probably like, Mitch, you've acted?
Wait, for real? And I'm like, oh yeah, you know. So like, case in point, one of the guys that I work with, do you remember that guy? I think I told the story. It was the North Carolina word of the day. He said howdy. Yeah. And he was actually saying, how old are you? So that guy, gruff as can be, I think he grew up in Kentucky and he moved out here like when he was 16 or something like that. So he had a repo business. He's a mechanic. He's just the gruffest gruff motherfucker ever. Leading up to Valentine's Day, we're like, you know, hey, yeah, we're finished for the day. What are you doing? He's like, oh, I got to go work on the haunted house. And we're like, wait, what? He's like, oh yeah, my buddy, he has this property where they do like this annual haunted house for Halloween. And yeah, we're doing our Valentine's Day haunted house. We're calling it Cupid's Nightmare. Yeah, this same Southern motherfucker, like, he turns out cool. he's into this whole, like, the haunted house community. He's, like, doing all these, like, haunted shows. He goes and sees other haunted houses and, like, does the tours and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm like, hey, babe, never heard of this. I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, hey, I've never heard of this ever. It's a haunted Valentine's Day thing. It's called Cupid's Nightmare or some shit. You want to go? And we're like, yeah, let's go check it out. And we're not like, she's not usually into the big horror scene, and neither am I really, but we're like, hey, you know, someone from work did it, let's go support them, you know, let's go do it.
Sure.
And it was actually pretty awesome. It was actually really awesome. But
no, and I love when things like that happen. I do know, so when I was like 19, I did Romeo and Juliet.
You've mentioned it.
I mentioned it once or twice, but it was kind of funny because like a lot of people that knew me actually came out to see it because I think just in their heads they're like, Mike's doing Shakespeare,
right? Right, yeah.
Because it was at the time like some of my friends knew I did theater, but like it was still community college. The greater people that knew me, like, you know, the people who only kind of knew me didn't really know I did theater, quote unquote.
Right.
So when they heard Mike's doing Romeo and Juliet, what the fuck? A lot of people that knew me came and saw it. Like, and so it was kind of interesting in that way. And I do like what you just said, that where you talk to someone who you did not suspect was into this thing.
Right.
And you're just kind of like, whoa.
Whoa, really?
What?
Wow. I love it. It kind of, to me, it's an example. A small part of what it means to be a full human is that you have your utility, you have your philosophy, you have your intellect, but you have to have your art as well. You have to have some way to express how you feel. And well, I mean, I believe you have to have that, at least in some part in your life. So when you have like people that you would think have no room in their life at all for any kind of artistic expression, boom, they hit you with this, oh yeah, no, this is what I do, and whatever. And it's like, whoa, I love it. Cool. Okay. Oh.
No, yeah, I think that's awesome. I do, granted, it's not exactly the same thing, but I remember one of my employees who's younger, she's like 22 or 23. She was going, I forgot what she was doing, and she was going to like some rave. And she said, like, I was like, oh, are you working Saturday? She's like, oh no, I'm going to insert rave something. And I was like, oh shit, like what is that? Like who's DJing it? Blah blah blah. And I was asking her questions, and she kind of seemed like
because Mike, you were into that. You used to be into that.
Well, at first, I think she probably thought like, oh, the manager in his 30s is trying to connect to me. But I was like actually asking questions, and I was like, yeah, I used to go to raves when I was younger, and she was like, kind of like, really? And I was like, yeah, like I would glow string, like I would do strings and shit. And she was like, yeah, no, you didn't. And so I pulled up Facebook. There's a photo or a video of me, like an old video on Facebook, and I started showing her these videos of me spinning strings with glow sticks, and she was like, are you fucking serious? I was like, yeah, it's me.
I love it.
And so it was kind of like in her head, I think she thought I was like the manager, the boss, who's just trying to be cool, like one of the kids.
Yeah.
And then when I actually showed her, I was like, no, and I started scrolling through these photos when I was younger, like fucking beads on my wrists and like, glow sticks dancing. She was like, what the fuck? Like, she was like, that's awesome. And there was another different employee some years back, same thing. She said something about like she's going to go see a play. And similarly, I was like, oh, what play? And I forgot what it was. It was like some fucking Shakespeare or something. And I was like, oh, that's cool, like, blah, blah, blah. And I actually started like talking to her like I knew what I was talking about. And she's like, oh, do you like going to see theater, like to see plays? And I was like, I haven't been to a play in a while, but like I used to act. And she was like, kind of like you and the guy with the haunted house.
Yeah.
She was like, really? And I was like, well, yeah, like I never went like professional, but like I used to do it a lot. And she's like, I don't see it. And so similar, like I pulled up because there's all these old photos.
See it.
But I pulled up like my headshots from when I was younger, and the same reaction.
Awesome. You want to?
My headshots are pretty fucking good when I was younger.
Your hair is fucking sweet. You want to know what Quentin Tarantino's sexier cousin looks like? Find Mike's headshots. It's yeah.
No, yeah, my young headshots. Some of them are pretty nice. So I started showing her these, and like, granted, I was her age, around her age, in these photos.
Yeah.
So even she was like, "Oh my god!" It's like,
you were younger.
It's like, "Oh my god!" Like, you look good. And I was like, fuck you, first of all. Secondly, I think I said that to her. I was like, fuck you, first of all. Secondly, I used to act.
Yeah, I love that, though. You can't help it. I mean, everyone does it. And you shouldn't feel ashamed that you have tendencies when you get this scope of a person, especially at work, because that's all you know is just them at work. And you assume that's who they are outside of work as well. And it's like, well, wait, if they assume the same thing of me, I'd be pretty insulted because shit, yeah, I do theater and I do, I like to write. I used to do a lot more music and shit. I'm expressive as fuck. So,
Well, and so this will be my last example on this. And this was actually a very nice compliment. So I allowed this guy who's a regular, and I've told him he kind of does like indie films. Granted, not very good ones. He's not going to hear it. But like he does them.
Fully clothed or what?
No, yeah, fully clothed. They'd probably
cool.
be better with nudity, but fully clothed, mainly horror. But nice. So I kind of was starting to bug him, like, hey, like if you need me to act in anything, like let me know, I can act. And I think he was kind of like right, because who doesn't say that. I've had people tell me when I was like kind of dabbling in it, like, hey, if you ever need like an actor, let me know. And I'm like, you, like just random people, like,
yeah, that was me, motherfucker. No,
Well,
I'm
no, at
joking.
least I knew you had skill. Like I'm talking about random ass like customers.
No,
Were like,
yeah.
if you ever need an actress, I can come out and be. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
So I think he had that response to me, like I was just some guy trying to get like into acting.
yeah.
And then I actually acted for him one time. He finally, because I told him I was like, dude, I actually have like old headshots. I have training, blah blah blah. And so he let me act for him one time. He's like, oh yeah, you can act. And so there was this is like a year or two ago. He asked if he could use the bar for a scene in a movie he was producing, and I was like, yeah, sure. You got a part? Like, you got a part for me? Like, I'll act in it. And he's like, yeah, sure. I figured like I wrote this character. Like you're gonna be the character in this scene. I was like, all right, cool. Just a supporting character, one scene, cool.
Yeah.
And so some of the extras on the scene were other regulars that I knew that came in to be his extras, like his friends.
I love it. That's so
and
cool.
so yeah, so we did the scene. I acted. I was professional. I knew my lines. I did it right. And they later told me, they're like, we're not gonna lie, like we knew you said you acted, but like actually seeing you act, because you know what I mean, like they're like actually seeing you do it, we now believe you.
Yeah.
Because you were actually
Now
doing
we
it.
believe you. Yeah.
And they're like, and not I'm not being selfish or conceited, but they're like, and you did it good, like you were good.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So it was interesting seeing you doing it after hearing you talk about it, and I was like, fuck yeah, I am. Like,
thank you.
like
But,
I am trained.
Here's my resume, man. Look,
Yeah.
I have pictures. It is kind of hard though. You could say, I mean, because honestly, I see it in work as well. It's like, no, I'm a good mechanic. And then they go out and they actually do some really good work, and you're like, oh shit, no, you're actually a really good mechanic. Like, yeah, motherfucker, I told you, but.
What's what even it was funny in college, in at Las Vegas, not the community college. I only was in
Wait, where?
Las Vegas. Yeah. I was only in one or two full plays because it's just a lot of actors, only a limited amount of plays.
Right.
So a lot of the people in the department didn't really see me act. And like the first play I was in was the first semester before anyone knew who I was, and the character had previously had a stroke, so I was just talking in like noise. Like,
I remember this. I remember this.
So I would talk in noise. What?
This struck a memory with me because you were researching this part, and you were asking about my grandmother because my grandmother at the time had suffered a big stroke, and she had wasn't able to speak and all that. I remember like talking with you about it. That's so
Probably,
funny.
yeah.
Wow. Wow.
But so that at the time, not a lot of people knew who I was because it was my first semester there. I was fresh on the department, and so a lot of people forgot that was me. And then going forward, I wasn't in a lot of plays, so I just did scene work in my classes, etc. And then I was in a friend of mine who was in a directing class got me and someone else to act for her in a scene, and we did a good job. I think I did a good job, and a few people in that class were like, "We've just realized we've never actually seen you act."
Oh, interesting.
Because even though we're all in the acting department, it's always scenes or studies, and he was like, I just realized I've never seen you actually act. Like, you did a good job, but I just never have seen you act.
Yeah.
And so even in the department, other people were like, whoa, Mike acts.
Yeah.
And we're in the department. Like,
you know what that reminds me of? And I don't know if it's exactly the same, but it just reminded me of it. I remember my wife and I had been married maybe about 8 months. We'd been together for almost 2 years at that point, and I had talked to her about what I do and my work and all that, and she's seen me do work around the house and whatever, for all this time. But at this one point, we're almost a year married. She came along with me on a job. We were going up to Mammoth, and I was like, I'm going to be gone for a few days. Why don't you just come with me? Like, the both of us, we'll go up, we'll stay at the hotel, it'll be great. And you'll kind of have to like hang out while I'm doing this work, but my customers don't care. I'm working on their generator. They don't care that, other people are there. So my wife's like, awesome. I get to, come along. I'll sit in the truck and knit or whatever. I know she was cross stitching.
Sure.
Doesn't matter. Anyway, she was there. And so I'm doing a service on a generator and I'm working, and I realized that she was out of the truck watching. And she was like, I just realized I've never seen you work. Like, actually, I know you work, and I knew you like did all this stuff, but I never actually saw you work. And oh my God, it's that kind of, but that same kind of realization where it's like, I knew you could, but seeing you actually do it is a different thing.
Different
it's
step.
Cool.
Yeah. It's a different step.
Yeah.
100%.
So my strategy, I do want to get back, like start auditioning. If I see like a Shakespeare or a good straight play come around that I really want to do, I'll go for it. But the truth is, I was like, the plan was like, yeah, I'd like to get back into the theater. I'd like to like start writing again. I'd like to do all this stuff. I'd like to make sure I'm solid in my job first, so that way I can get away with asking for time off if need be, and that way I know I won't be, you know, what's the word? Quarantined from my other mechanic coworkers that find out that I'm a fairy that just likes to act. But
no, I get that. Even like recently, because you know we mentioned like me and my creative partners, I call him Mike Ortiz. We've been trying to write books and do stuff. And just recently, like, I'm not sure if I said it on here before, but like, since we're opening up a second, we're opening up a second business, me and my business partner, and it's just been like a lot of work where I get home and I'm just like, I'm awake, but I'm just mentally and creatively, I can't fucking do shit.
I get
and
it,
I apologize to him all the time because I've been like, no, I'm gonna write, I'm gonna get this shit done, and then I just don't, and I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm sorry. So I'm hoping, like once the second spot opens up, hopefully at the end of the month, and we get that going and we get like our footing and we can get like things to where it's like both our businesses are running like good and we don't have to be there all the time, then I'm hoping that I could probably get that back into something.
See, and like I hear myself say it and I hear other people say it, but the truth is, you know, if you're waiting for it to be the right time, it's just never going to happen.
There's truth to that too. There's truth to that too.
But no, there is truth, but there is also I am, but I'm drained, and I will do myself a disservice if I try to do it at this point, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, so. There was you kind of, what you just said kind of hit on it, but there was a quote this chick I follow on Instagram. She was in, you probably experienced this, if you did a play or you did a short film or you were on set with someone, you add everybody on Facebook and Instagram and shit.
Oh yeah.
She's one of these people that I just added.
Right.
And she like released a video because she's apparently like some sort of fucking life coach now. I don't know what the fuck she does. But she in a video
she was one of the victims of COVID, man. She was an actress, and then all of a sudden COVID hit, and they're like, "Well, shit, I gotta find another job."
And I forgot who she attributed the quote to. Maybe it was Edison. Anyway, it was, if you say that you don't have time for what was it? If you don't have time for something, or you do have time for something, you're right either way.
Whoa.
The point being, like, it's your mindset. If you can find time for it, you're right. Yeah. If you can't find time for it, you're also right. And I was kind of like, I get that, but like, fuck you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, and you've probably experienced this too. When I was younger in my 20s, I was working, 5 days, sometimes 6 days a week, long hours, dealing with dumb fucking customers. But I was knocking my writing out because I was young, I was energetic. The world hadn't hit me yet. I was still cynical, but not quite as cynical. And then fast forward, and now especially with my position changing, it's different stress, but still stress. A new
big
business.
Time different. Yeah,
like different things going on. And I get home, and I think it was a week or two ago, I sat down at my laptop. My lady went to bed, so it was just my time. And I was like, this book I was supposed to have written, and I haven't barely touched it. I'm going to fucking knock out at least 10 pages. I wrote one sentence and then blank.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like writer's block. It was literally like, I can't think of anything to fucking put. And I text Mike again, and I was like, yo, I am so fucking sorry. I do not know what's going on right now.
Woof. Have you heard of the book? I think it's called The Artist's Way.
It sounds familiar.
It's a book. The whole principle behind it is that your creative process is a muscle like any other muscle. If you neglect it, then it will get weak like any other.
I believe it.
Call it dying talent, not dying talent. What do they call it? I forget what it's called, but it's like shooting, going to the shooting range. If you don't practice often, it's going to be a skill that dies off eventually. You need to kind of keep rejuvenating it and keep practicing at it. It's I'll see if I can find the copy. We'll post a link in the bio. But it's a big thing about, like, one of the things is that, you start each day and you write 5 pages. Doesn't matter, no point, whatever, just write your thoughts. If you need to, just write for 5 pages. And it's like that kind of stuff where it's just like keep the muscle moving. It was really interesting.
There was something like that too. I remember I got from a friend of a friend a recommendation. It's called On Writing by Stephen King. And
good one.
Have you read it?
I started it.
Are you about to Michael Scott me? Have I read it? I own it. But no, I have not read it.
But no, I don't think I still have it. No, I remember starting it. I must have been like in a library and started reading it.
Yeah, but no, it's a great book. The first portion of it is like kind of Stephen King talking about his journey in writing, like his career. And the second part of it is actually him talking about his writing process. It was super interesting. And one of the things he said, which I've in recent days, I recalled it and I was like, I'm gonna live by this, and I failed miserably since. Is that he always said no matter what kind of mood he was in, kind of like what you just said, no matter what kind of day he's having, he's going to write at least 1 page a day. No matter what, 1 page.
Yeah.
Now, I know in your book, the 4 pages, it was a different thing, but in his head, it's like, at least if I write 1 page a day, it's a step forward in what I'm trying to do. 1 page.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if I do more, great, but at least 1 page.
Yeah. So it was interesting. The church that we've been going to, they've been just finishing up a series on, talking about this, that, and the other, mostly Bible stuff. But one of the things they talked about was they were talking about, and you could apply this to a lot of things in your life. That's why I bring it up. But they talk about spending time in prayer or reading the Bible and whatever. It's about how you prioritize your life. You're never gonna have time for the important things in your life. You're never going to have time for your family or, your kids or religion or whatever it is. The point they drove home is you need to make the time. There's going to be other things that seem like they have priority, but if you truly take the initiative and make time for these things, it'll make a huge difference. Easier said than done, but holy shit.
Yeah. No, 100%. Even, I'm not going to go into it because, not time or place, but last week or so, went to the doctor. Nothing serious, but like a health red flag.
Oh shit.
Nothing serious. Even they were like, "You're not dying. Don't worry." Like nothing like that.
Oh shit.
But they were kind of like, "Calm down, Mitch."
Oh shit.
But like even that, I was like, "Fuck." Yeah, I need to find time to do some shit I enjoy because
perspective.
The way my brain works, it could be like you rolled your ankle, and I'm like, "Of fucking course I did." Next week I'm gonna break my leg. Like just that's the way my brain works. And so when after the doctor's visit yesterday, I was kind of like, fuck man, like I need to make some time to do some shit I enjoy, because what if this was something more serious?
You know what's funny is you said it reminded me of a guy. Like I was maybe 3 weeks into this job and they sent me with this guy. We'll call him I'm trying to think of fake names, but all the names I thought of are actual techs here. Shit. Joe. Okay.
Moses.
I don't think I work with a Joe. Joe. We'll call him Joe.
Joe.
I go to work with Joe. Joe is about 20 years older than me. He's in his mid to late 50s. And we're doing this job. He's a good tech. I'm a good tech. We're doing these jobs, whatever. And he asks, what do you, family life, what's it like? I'm like, I'm married. We're going to start having kids pretty soon. He says, and then later down the day, he's like, so what, you do you like getting the hours in? I'm like, oh yeah, man. I mean, I love getting overtime. I'll work weekends. I'll do whatever it takes, man. I'm trying to get that money because I want to buy a house soon and this and that. And he's like, yeah, I used to be the same way. Now, granted, this guy's in his 50s, not old, but older.
Yes.
And he said, but what happened, he said, but what happened is, my son actually passed away about 4 years ago. And it like brought the whole day just down.
Yeah.
But that's a side note. But I'm
Christ.
like, whoa. And he's like, I was the same way. I worked overtime and I worked weekends, and then my son passed away. And then holy shit, all that time I spent at work, suddenly realized I could have been spending with him. It's one of those things. It made me like think of really the same principle, but from a different perspective of when you're lying on your deathbed, you never wish you could have worked more or watched more TV or whatever. You wish you'd spent it with more people. But the worst part of it is you're not on the deathbed and you realize you're standing next to someone on the deathbed and you realize you wish you didn't work as much so you could have spent more time with that person. And it was like, holy shit. But it was that same kind of thing. It's like, oh my God. It made me stop and think, okay, that's right. Okay, I got to keep that in mind. I might not die, but someone I love might die, and that might change the whole thing.
Sure, that's what I guess this will be a more happy take on it. But I remember, him. I'm going to change his name. Joe. Let's stick with Joe. This was at Chafee Theater, and Joe, who I still know to this day, lovely guy. I love him to death. We're doing some fucking play at Chafee, and I remember what play it is. I'm going to leave it out just so there's no, more anonymity.
Probably Romeo and Juliet.
It wasn't Romeo and Juliet.
No,
I'll say that. I'll say that. It wasn't Romeo and Juliet. But
oh shit! See, you said it's not Romeo and Juliet. That eliminates 90% of the people you know.
That like 60% of the people.
Okay, all right, fine.
No, but
I'm joking. Go on.
I know. But we were chilling kind of in the quad in front of the theater. I'm gonna be vague about the location description just so it doesn't matter as much. And Joe, if you will, I almost said his real name right now.
Shit.
I forgot. Like he was kind of like, I really want it. Like this girl walked by and he kind of forced a conversation, and she kept walking to the parking lot, and he was kind of like, fucking blew it. And I was like, what? And at that point we knew each other. He's like, I really wanted to fucking ask her out, and I just kind of, I just froze and blew it. And I was just being a dick. I was like, well, don't be a pussy. Go run after her and ask her out.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it's too late. Like, she already walked by. It'd be weird. And I was like, pussy. Huh? And like somebody else was like, pussy. Like, we're just fucking roasting him,
Right.
And he's like, you know what? You're right. Fuck it. And it's kind of hard to describe, but like, because this kind of comes into play. It's kind of like the quad area, the quad in front of the theater, and then there's kind of like a stairway going up a hill to where the parking lot is. And he sprints after her, because at this point she's already almost to her car up in that parking lot, and he literally runs after her, and gets her gets to her while she's like approaching her car. Like they're at the car, and we're watching. We're like, oh my god, this fucking moron. And then we see them talking, and they kind of nod, and she gives him a hug, and he comes back, and we're like, what happened? And he's like, she said no.
What?
And
that's the worst story ever.
No, and so we were like, oh, it sucks. Like you ran all the way up there, like you're fucking sweating, like, oh, it sucks.
Yeah.
But then I remember later, because at the time I was like, oh, you fucking idiot. But then later I was like, you know what? That's fucking good for him.
It's fucking awesome.
You know what I'm saying? Like he got turned down,
awesome.
But that was good for him. Super embarrassing. We were all laughing at him. But in retrospect, I was like, fucking good for him. He didn't give a fuck, and he just went for it. Yeah.
I would so much rather have rejection and failure than, like...
That's the point. Yeah, that's the point.
Than not living your life, than just staying put,
And that's what, like, I'll admit to it. Like, there are moments in my life in the past where I didn't go for it. And now I'm like, fuck, I just wish I would have seen what would have happened.
I have to really try hard to think about the times I just actually went for it and got a no, and remember those moments. But I can tell you every single time I wanted to and didn't.
Same.
It's a really interesting thing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Probably would have been rejected and would have forgotten about it. But I always remember. It's not interesting. You always remember the moves you didn't take. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott. No, yeah, 100%. And that's why, like, I still think of that moment. I still remember it. Yeah. And even though at the time we were all laughing at him, and like I'm repeating myself, in retrospect, I was like, no, that's great for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in the moment he might have been embarrassed, but looking back, he's like, hey, I tried. I gave it a whirl.
And if you believe that, well, if you believe that your writing skill is a muscle that needs to be exercised, if you believe that taking chances part of you, that risk part of you, is also a muscle that needs to be exercised, he worked it and it got a little bit stronger. Win or lose, it got a little bit stronger. He went for that. He went for that risk and he got it.
What's the concept of a lot of people that I know? This is a weird thing to compare it to, but it'll come around. There's a guy that when I was bartending, he'd come around a lot. Fucking moron. Moron. Not charming. Not like he mumbled in his words. Fucking moron. And this guy got more pussy than I've ever seen anyone get. And and what I come to find out, because I remember at the time, I'll be vague, but like another bartender who worked there, I might have been barbacking, either way, he was friends with him.
Okay.
And I would ask him, I was like, I don't understand how this stupid motherfucker, because like I said, he wasn't bad looking, but he wasn't like hot. And I was like, how does he get so much fucking pussy? I just don't get it. Like, I have to work for it. Like, I have to put in the time and the effort and sometimes the money. The money as in, like, buying drinks and shit, not, you know.
We all knew what you meant. No, but, like, I'm better looking. I'm funnier. What the hell?
Better looking to stretch, but definitely a better personality. Much funnier, much more charismatic. And what he said was, and this is where it comes back around, he's like, for every girl who goes home with him, there is at least 10 that said no.
He's running a numbers game.
And no, and so, and then I was like, huh. And that's when I started paying attention to him. And sure enough, one night, I was barbacking, that's right at the time. One night, I just watched him, and you could literally, if you watched him, over the course of 2 to 3 hours, he probably went up to like 7 or 8 different women. And then, like, by the 9th one, who was probably at that time drunker than the other ones, took him home.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was like, that's kind of inspirational.
Yeah.
That the whole thing.
It reminds me of Glenn Quagmire from Family Guy. That kind of like, you know, just like hit it, move on. You're like a what do you call it? A cold caller
Yeah, exactly.
The phone, what do they call it? The guys on the phone that call
cold
it telemarketers.
Cold callers. Telemarketers.
Telemarketers. They call and then like you can hang up, boom. They're already, by the time you're done bitching about this call that you got, they're already on 4 or 5 calls. And eventually they're going to hit one that sticks and they make money. And that's
that's what the other bartender told me. He's like, in his head, like, cause to me, when I was single, it was a lot for me to go up and hit on a woman or even try to initiate a conversation with a stranger.
Girl, same.
Yeah. Right. Because the rejection, one, just trying to start a conversation, the rejection, blah, blah, blah. And in this guy, he told me, he's like, this is the bartender saying, like, he's told me before, the worst that could happen is that they say, I'm not interested. And he just goes, okay.
Yeah.
And walks away and goes to the next one.
Like, yeah, right.
and I was like, oh, it's fucking annoying. Because, like, like I said, I tried so hard to get, like, not get laid, but, like, talk to women sometimes, and I just drop and fail miserably. I'm like, oh, no, I'm going home. And then this guy's just like, I don't give a fuck.
Ugh.
And he's slaying it.
You can't help but be envious of, like, God, I wish I didn't care like he did. That's
right. Yeah. I probably he was like 5 years older than me. I probably have more gray hair than him too.
I wrote it down because it was an earlier point. Going back to Stephen King's book on the writing book or whatever. Yes. I heard this point made on a podcast I was listening to. It was really kind of like I had to pull over. I was laughing so hard. It was Harmontown. You know, Dan Harmon, writer, creator of Community, Rick and Morty, etc. He brought up the point of going to these like Comic-Con or whatever, and you know he's on these panels of like writers, these other famous writers, and young writers will ask them, you know, is there a point when you know you've gone far enough, or is there a point where you should give up, or is there a point when you know it's like not for you and something like that? And Harmon remarked on the fact that, yeah, you always ask that question of people who are widely successful. It's like young writers want to know what it's like, what advice you get. And he's like, you got to realize that 90% of these people are unsuccessful and they fail. And but before I get into his philosophy on that, I always thought that was kind of ironic. We always ask the successful ones for advice. You just don't even get it into your head, whether it be acting or any other kind of entertainment or writing. We always ask the successful ones for their advice. And of course, the successful ones are going to be like, yeah, don't give up. Don't give up. I didn't give up. And look, I'm successful because of it. And it's like, well,
you're one out of how many?
Yeah, it was just an interesting point that I'm like, oh, it would take a successful, cynical shithead to make that point that, you know, ask the successful ones, but really you need to, you should ask the failures.
Yeah, get a little bigger sample range in that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That is interesting.
His point ultimately was, if you want to be a writer, you want to be a creative really in any element. If you want to be a writer, you need to imagine a life where you slave over it And writers, it demands a lot from them emotionally, maybe not physically or intellectually.
Emotionally, yeah.
To write it takes a lot emotionally. And he's like, if you could do that your whole life and then suddenly suffer a stroke at 62 and realize that it was all for nothing and be okay with it, then yeah, you should stick with being a writer. And I was like, oh my God. But yeah.
I mean, that's the dramatic point. I understand the point, but I get it.
I mean, but it's a worst case scenario. And if you're okay with the worst case scenario, then you're good. But
my personal take on it, and I can't use myself as an example because as far as the acting and writing thing, like as a profession, as a to make a living.
Right. Yeah.
I threw the towel in after about 3 years of constantly auditioning in LA. And not even because I lost my love for it. It was because, I think I said this before, I was literally behind on bills.
Yeah.
And like my car payments, like I never got a threaten to repo, but I remember even my car payment, they called me and they're like, you haven't made a payment in 2 months. And I was like, oh shit, like I'll get the money. Shit. And I made it work. But so I got tied up in my work because I needed to live and pay rent and buy food, and I needed to live. So I kind of had to throw the towel in just for pragmatic purposes. But I do think that it's a tough pill to swallow. But hypothetically, so I graduated college when I was 24. I'm 35 now, almost 36. If I was still in the same position that I was in at 24, auditioning in LA, working paycheck to paycheck, one, my lovely wife now would probably not be with me anymore.
No, she wouldn't.
No. Two, there comes a time, and I'm not saying like that if I have to be famous or massively successful, but if I'm not working, like if I'm not getting work, because even like I know people who act for a living and they make a living at it. They're not famous, but they get the bit parts on the sitcoms, the TV shows.
But they work.
They're working actors. If I'm not working, if I'm still living paycheck to paycheck, maybe serving at a restaurant and then bartending on the weekends, driving Uber when I can, and like, so what is that? 10, 11 years has passed, and I'm not a working actor or a working writer. I do think it doesn't mean that you gave up, but I do think there comes a time where it's like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
This is not working, and I need to make a change.
100%. I mean, you touched on it, your lovely wife that wouldn't be with you, and it was kind of like, it made me like kind of think, it's like, oh yeah, you know what, there are a lot of working creatives, people in the entertainment industry that don't have a family life and don't have a house and things, and that's okay. I mean, the problem comes from deciding what you believe to be valuable in your life and saying that's a standard for everyone. For me, majoring in theater in college and realizing, okay, what do I really value in life, and what do I want, and how do I get that? Does that what I truly value, what is priority to me, I will have a hard time getting if I continue majoring in theater. So I should probably go a different route. And and then I liked your hesitance to call it throwing in the towel, because it's not quite giving up. It's more like, okay, not this route. This isn't gonna get me to a point of things that I value. I mean, go on. Sorry.
No, because I was gonna kind of your point. I forgot who you said it. Like, so, like, let's take that example to an extreme. I start auditioning when I'm 24. Acting. Let's forget writing, just acting. I fast forward. I'm 58, 62, whatever you want to say. Older. I have never been a working actor. I've been auditioning constantly for 30 to 40 years. I get a bit part every now and then. I do some student films for gas money. But for 30 to 40 years, I've been working as a server, bartender, Uber driver, all these, survival gigs, as they call them.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I have a stroke and I'm in the hospital, and they're like, you're not going to make it. The quote you said, that if you spent it and you don't regret it, then you did the right thing. I think 100% I'd be like, I wasted my life.
Yeah.
And that's such a downer.
Right.
But my point is, like, if you there comes a time where I think this is gonna be fucked up. It goes against everything we taught when we're growing up. If your dreams aren't working, there's nothing wrong with changing your dreams or adjusting and doing something else. There's nothing wrong with it.
100%. Yeah. That's so, like, it's so real. It's like, it's okay. It's okay to say this, that it's not for everyone. I mean, everyone doesn't need to shoot for the absolute best. Do you think the septic tank worker is living his dream? Come on. It's like, no, everyone has what they value and they pursue that.
What was the guy? Yeah. Who was the guy you might know? Tosh.0 had him on.
Daniel Tosh.
Yeah, but he had him on, I think it was Tosh.0. He went viral because, like, it was like a recorded audition he made for, like, Apocalypse Now in, like, the 80s, 70s, 80s. And so this guy made this ridiculous audition video in, like, the 70s or 80s. I think it was for Apocalypse Now. I could be wrong. But, like, it was a ridiculous audition video. And someone found it and it went viral decades later.
Okay.
Because, like, Stanley Kubrick did Apocalypse Now, right?
No, that was Capula. George Capula. Not George. The Godfather guy, Capula. Frank Capula? He did Apocalypse George Now? Capula? Yeah.
Whoever it was. I thought it was Kubrick. What was it? I forgot what the audition was for. Anyway.
Francis Ford Capula. Got it. Yep.
Got it. Okay.
Right, go ahead.
I forgot what the audition was for. I thought it was Apocalypse Now. I could be wrong. Because I remember he in the camera, he was talking to, like, Stanley Kubrick, I believe. I could be wrong. Anyway, and he gives this audition, and it's fucking awful audition. Like, and he, like, tries to give advice to the director too about future projects, or I forgot what it was.
Shit.
And so this video went viral. I was at Vegas, so this is probably around 2010ish, 2011ish, maybe. Okay. It goes viral, and I believe it was Tosh.0 play this video and went and found this guy. So you're talking 30 years later. Yeah. And this I say this with empathy, this poor bastard was still working as a waiter still trying to audition for things.
Okay.
And I think he said, like, but he was actually really cheerful and, like, really happy. Yeah. But he wasn't a working actor. He was still working as a server. And he's like, yeah, I'm still out here doing stuff and auditioning and blah, blah, blah. And I remember thinking, even at the time, I was like, bro.
Yeah.
Bro. Like,
that's what, like, what's interesting about, I think, like, people like you and me and a lot of people out there, and if anyone's listening and they're like, think that they're shitty because of this, you're not. It's fine. We measure our value by how successful we would actually become. I hit a point in my life where I was like, okay, to major in theater, what do I need to do to that I would consider successful for myself, that I would consider that valuable and make all this worth it? Well, I'd have to, like, major, like, I'd have to, like, star in a movie or, like, be a, like, lead professor at some college. Shit. Okay, well, I'm probably not going to achieve that. So maybe I should I just ran the numbers game, and it's like, maybe I should go a different route.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, Bill Burr had Bill Burr, you've mentioned this before. He talks about how when he was, like, sleeping on a cot and living on a sofa in an empty apartment.
Yeah.
But he had a bit where he was talking about how, like, he wastes a lot of money. This is on his podcast. He was talking with his wife about how, like, for years he paid for 3 cell phones even though he had one because he forgot to cancel it. And, like, he was giving these examples about how he just, like, wastes money. And she was like, you know how many people are probably pissed off at you right now that you just throw away money?
Yeah.
And what he said was great. He's like, I don't give a fuck. He was like, I got into an industry with no connections, no connections, no hookups, where 99% of the people fail, and I made it. Yes, I'm going to throw away money. I made it. He was like, I'm going to repeat myself. I entered an industry with no connections, no hookups, no shortcuts. Yeah. I grinded it out.
Yes.
Eating, I think he said eating ketchup on his noodles and shit. He's like, I grinded it out. I was I was hungry. I was poor, but I grinded it out and I made it. Yes, I'm throwing away money because I can. I don't care. And even she was like, okay. Okay. And so that's where like, yeah,
The
like
coolest thing ever.
and even recently, like I had a conversation with someone. They're like, "What if the bar burned down? Like, what are you gonna do?" Like, and I was like, "Well, I can't really get into acting. I'm not young and beautiful anymore." And of course, like, well, Samuel L. Jackson didn't get his first break till he was in his 40s. And I was like, "Yeah,
Blah, 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 blah.
roll the dice on that one. How many people in their 40s get that break? How many people in the dude who I just talked about still waiting? Like that guy didn't get it. You said it's the numbers game. If you want to if you want to work 30 years hoping to one day be famous, go for it. But you got to know that's a really slim dice you're rolling.
We're not saying give up on your dreams. We're just saying like, hey, sometimes it's okay to make a better decision. It's not giving
Or
up.
adjust. I would say adjust.
Adjust. That's a better way to put it. Yeah. God, I love fucking Bill Burr. He's
No,
so
when
funny.
he said that, he unabashedly just said like I succeeded in an industry where everyone fails. Fuck off.
No, I love it when people like that who've hit that pinnacle of success and they say, you know what? No, I worked my dick off for this. Go fuck yourself. It's the best thing ever. There's that quote from Elon Musk who he said, I work 360 days a year, 6 days a week, 23 hours. I know that doesn't add up. Let me
Whatever
go back.
the numbers are. Yes, I get it.
I work 18 hours a day, 6 days a week, whatever 100 days a year, and people still call me lucky. And it's like, no, I worked my ass off to get to where I am, and that's I'm gonna gloat. I've earned this. So, man,
yeah. So, long story short, folks.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Give up on your give up on your dreams. It's fine. No, it's know yourself, know what you value, and don't let people tell you what to value. And that works both ways. I mean, Mike and I kind of hit like kind of conflicts of ambition because we were raised our whole life to follow our dream and shoot for the stars and go for the most. And then went right around our early 20s, we were like, wait, I don't know if it's worth all that, or if it's worth taking the risk. Maybe I need to adjust or something like that. Yeah. So,
and don't get me wrong. Both ways. Yeah, don't get me wrong. If someone hypothetically walked up to me right now and was like, "Here's $500,000 to create your own movie studio or to do something," I'd be like, "Cool, bye bar, goodbye."
Yeah,
like I'm
100%.
Out. But realistically, my thing, and I'm kind of saying it again, was like, yeah, like I was auditioning for 2 to 3 years. I was broke. I wasn't happy. Like I still loved the craft, but it wasn't working. And I was getting gigs, a few paying gigs too, but it wasn't substantial and it wasn't holding ground. And so I needed to adjust. So granted, I got kind of caught up in the bar to where like I kind of got trapped in it, but it was so I could support myself financially. Because Erica doesn't want no broke bitch. And so,
you can look at your life and be like, man, look at all those auditions I missed out on because of this wife I have. Shit.
Sure, and I there's that too, but it's a choice I made, and I have to live with it. And that sounded really fucking mean. That wasn't even towards Erica. That was just I meant when I stopped auditioning.
Well, I meant it sarcastically. Like, dude, you have a wife and a house and all these awesome like tap handles you have on the wall and
the
shit
collection
now.
of bar handles made it all worth it.
I mean, but because you were like, you know what? I think I want this out of my life more than I want the possibility of that.
It wasn't even that, because like I still to this day I'm still like, I want that. I still want that. I just think there's a balance to be had to where you could still want that and acknowledge that you didn't attain it. But
okay, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you could still want it and acknowledge that you didn't get it. But just realistically, if it's not, I don't want to say unobtainable because obviously people attain it, but at some point you got to be realistic. Example, I've talked about this guy before. We're going a little long, so we'll end it on this one, or you'll have a retort. I talked about this guy I know before that is a great guy. He's in Las Vegas. He changed his major from like mathematics or science to theater, and he started doing it. And granted, he's a great guy. And he's the hardest worker in the world, but it never really came out. You know what I mean? Like I was like, he's not a very good actor. And then I went and saw him in L.A. He was in a play. And so I went and saw the play. It was like kind of a 45-minute play. It wasn't like a full play. And there was only 2 people, the lead role, and then he was a supporting role. He came on every now and then. And he wasn't bad, but I was like, he hasn't progressed. You think years later that living in LA trying to audition, he'd progress. And I remember thinking like, because he posts like on Instagram and shit, like out here grinding, doing my thing. And I'm like, man, like at some point, I hope he like kind of has that realization of like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
And it sucks. And it really is that gamble. Because like I said, rolling the dice. Because the more, like hypothetically, like let's say I wanted, like right now, I was still auditioning in LA unsuccessfully.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think about getting older.
Yeah.
You're going to have to support yourself, and you can't bartend and you can't serve and you can't wait forever. So now at, let's say me, 35, I was auditioning, and now I realize that it's not working. I have to go find a bottom tier job because I have no experience with anything else.
No skills, no other skills.
No marketable skills.
Investments.
Yeah. And so you do find yourself in this thing where you want to pursue your dreams and grind it out till it works. But the more you go, the more you're in trap.
Well, there's the age-old proverb of you don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Sure.
You don't throw your whole life investment into auditioning for this because you think that's going to be the thing you're going to get. And there was something you said earlier and you kind of like glazed past it. And I thought there was a lot of wisdom in it. It's that there are things in your life that you will not attain. No matter how much you want or you will work for it, you will not attain it. And that's okay. There's going to be some shortcomings in your life that you're just not going to get. And I think that's true for every job, not just the entertainment industry.
Sure. No, 100%.
But there's going to be a point where you're like, I really wanted that. And I worked my ass off to get it. And I didn't get it. And that's okay. That's okay. I'm okay with that.
Well, I think it's an emotional maturity as well, which sometimes I don't have, to realize that you're not going to get it. And you just have to accept that.
Yeah.
That it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's a hard pill to swallow.
It is. And I feel like growing up, they could have prepared for that rather than supporting us as much as they did. I feel like teachers should have taught us more about, you know what, you're probably going to fail and that's okay. You know, you think I want to be, I'm teaching high school social, English. Do you think I wanted to be here? Come on. You know, it's okay.
And what's funny about that is if maybe not on the high school level, maybe on the high school level to an extent, but at least in my experience on the college level, I would say 3/4 of theater professors are all people who wish they weren't fucking there.
Yeah. See, that's interesting. Wow.
Because they'd rather be working.
Right.
They'd rather be working.
They settled for being a professor.
Yeah. I doubt you met him, but a guy who actually came to my wedding, he's one of my professors in Vegas, and he was actually very honest with us. He's like, I'm a working actor. That's my first priority. I teach college to pay my bills and send my girls to school.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And there were times where he actually would cancel a class, or he'd get someone to sub in for him, like a grad student would sub in or something, because he had a gig in LA.
Ooh.
So he's like, I'm an actor. Like I'm gonna work. I do this almost as a survival gig. He was a professor, like a survival gig. Like this pays my bills.
Interesting.
But I'm a working actor.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, he was a great guy. And I
see. There's I remember a professor I had at school when I was majoring in theater who his first class he talked about that timeless story of when they go into the class. He was retelling the story of all the actors that came into the class, and the professor came up and he's like, nope, none of you, no, all of you get out. And the professor walked out, and then everyone stayed, and he walked back in. He says, what are you talking? What are you all still doing here? None of you are going to make it. You all should just give up and leave. And he walked out of the classroom again. He walks back into the classroom. There's still some kids in the room. And he's like, God damn, I'm not kidding. This is not the class. I'm telling you honestly, everyone looking at you, all 10 of you, none of you are going to make it as an actor. Get out, go home, find a different major, get out. And the professor walks out of the class, walks back in again. And there's like 3 kids in there. And he's like, all right, you guys stuck it out. You might have a chance. And then he, continues with the class. I remember hearing that story.
Professor from Fight Club, or
right? Yeah. No, I remember hearing this story and thinking, now, and most of the kids in the class are sitting there listening to the story thinking, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to be one of those 3 left over and the whatever. I'm sitting there running numbers in my head like, shit. Okay, so like 90% of the people are going to fail. Is this worth like spending all this money and time on something that's probably going to fail? If I'm looking at it as a purely investment point of view, which if you're looking at college, you should consider that as an investment.
Yeah.
This does not seem like a smart investment to me. So I might, it's kind of.
I've heard something like that story too, and this is not at all why you told that story, but it's where my brain went. In my head, I was like, if this completely true story, obviously completely true story, actually happened, how fucking furious that university would be at him for running. That's where my head went. I was like, that cannot be a true story, because he'd be fired.
First of all, let me tell you why this is inaccurate. But no, but okay. Let's say university. Let's say just acting workshop,
like an acting studio or something. All right.
Yeah. Like Barry. Have you seen Barry?
I have not, but I want to. I like the topic.
I was thinking about the show earlier. I'm like, oh, that was a good show. I should tell Mike to watch that show. Oh, but we have that friend that keeps hounding it that he should watch it, and they make fun of him for keep mentioning. I won't say his name, but we have a friend that keeps bringing it up.
Yeah,
and I know, like, if I had been around when he kept bringing it up, I would avoid the show just because he kept bringing it up.
I think there's truth to that. That maybe that's why I haven't watched it yet, because subconsciously I was like, I don't want to give him the satisfaction. There is another aspect to it, which so in college, we could talk. I believed that a guy who lived next to me in the apartment complex thought I was a hitman.
Nice.
We could talk about that later.
Okay.
Because there was reasons. I didn't just think that, but and this is when I was toying with the idea of minoring in philosophy. And so I came up with this idea for a show about a college student who's majoring in philosophy, who is also a hitman in Las Vegas.
Ooh.
And I kind of thought of these scenarios and these things, and I was like, that'd be really interesting. Fast forward a few years, Barry comes out. And I read the description of the show, because if I recall, he's a guy trying to make it as an actor, but he's a hitman, right? Right?
No, no.
I thought that's what it was about.
Well, he's a hitman whose mark is in an acting class. So he joins the acting class to get to his mark.
Got it. I for some reason, just watching it, I thought he was like trying to be an actor while making his money as a hitman.
No, comes to find out he actually enjoys the class and he loves the craft and starts to stay with it. So, yeah.
Got you. Either way, I just remember when that came out, because it's still close enough.
Close enough.
I was like, fuck.
So either the idea is very hacky and easy and everyone can think of it, or this is a classic America's Got Talent, the guy that came up and sang Tequila and won scenario.
Yeah.
Where someone else had that idea and, whatever.
There was I actually legitimately got pissed off. So you've met DJ in passing, I think.
Yes. Yeah. I think was he at your wedding?
Yes.
I don't remember. Okay, then
he was there too. So me, DJ, or I kind of threw ideas at him, and I also threw ideas at this guy named Maxwell. You know Maxwell.
Yeah.
Mike Maxwell. We're throwing ideas around about this show. We were going to call it Citizens. And it was going to be just like a YouTube show, because it low budget, that we were going to shoot. And it was going to be about, I forgot what we were going to call it, but pretty much the Power Rangers, but from the viewpoint of the people who lived in Angel Grove.
Right, yeah.
Like, I think Maxwell, the character I was going to give Maxwell, was like the owner of a construction company, and he's fucking loaded. He's rich as shit because he's rebuilding the city every other week. And so we had all these like bit parts. I think I was going to play a police officer who was fired because, like, obviously we were going to use the bar to shoot. So I was someone who moved from like Chicago to Angel Grove to be a police officer and work with the Power Rangers. And then I tried to get involved in something. I got wrecked by Goldar, and then I got fired because the police aren't supposed to interfere. So now I'm stuck in Angel Grove, so I can't move back to Chicago, etc. Like, we had all these different things going on.
Amazing.
And I thought it was a great idea, but we never pulled the trigger on it. Our schedules conflicted. And then at some point, I forgot what it was called. The show never made it off the ground, but I forgot what network was in pre-production on a show. Same concept, but in Gotham.
Whoa. Okay.
And it was gonna focus, I think, around like a team of like news reporters, or I forgot what it was, but this show was like getting produced. Same concept, but Gotham and Batman. Yeah. And I was like, fuck. Like, so obviously they didn't steal it from me. Like, they didn't steal it, but like, I was like, that was my fucking idea first. Yeah.
Well, now mine's not going to work because someone's going to be like, oh, it's like that other show.
You copied it. Yeah. And that's when I was like, fuck. Like, I legitimately got angry.
I started working on a script for a remake of Red Dawn, and then heard that it was coming out with Thor and all that shit. I was pretty pissed too.
Yeah, exactly. But. Like, you get kind of mad. Not realistic, but mad.
I was in high school writing a script. What do you want?
I will say I still remember the moment where I kind of knew that like my acting career was never going to really work out.
I love this already. Go on.
And then we'll actually end it on this because we're at like an hour and a half.
All right.
Everyone, so just tell me right now. I know I'm not sure if you're a huge comic book nerd, but you read stories. What's the part you always wanted to play?
In what?
Anything. The role you wanted to play. If it's a book adaptation, comic book adaptation, a character that exists that you'd want to be in the movie adaptation or the show adaptation, whatever.
Well, like, because I just said it, it's the first one that came to mind. I always wanted to play Jed Eckert in Red Dawn. Like, the remake of Red Dawn, I wanted to play the older brother. Yeah, that'd have been,
Sure.
But
so
we'll use that as the example. That's one of them. But.
I had two. Comic book wise. First one was Gambit from X-Men.
Yeah.
And I actually can like twirl a fucking stick too, so I thought it'd be perfect. They cast what's his fucking name in the Wolverine prequel, and it wasn't good.
From John Carter.
Yeah, so it wasn't good, and I was like, okay, cool. Like in the back of your head, I'm like, might still have a shot one day. But the one that like, this is like before I was even auditioning at all. So I did my auditioning time. I stepped away from it, and the one that really gutted me, even though like I said, this is completely irrational. The one that really gutted me was when it was officially announced that Woody Harrelson was cast as Cletus Cassidy / Carnage. In the Venom sequel. I always wanted to play... Actually, if you look right here on my screen, that's Gambit and Carnage.
Oh, shit.
Those are my two faves. And so... As silly and irrational as it was, when they announced that they actually cast Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy Carnage, I was like, well, there it goes.
There it went.
There it goes. No, that's the acting career right there. It's gone.
Gone.
Fucking gone. Anyway.
Yeah, for me, anytime I see Miles Teller in a movie, I'm like, I could have played that. We look exactly the same.
So funny note, I actually had this in my notes. We'll actually go out on this one. Famous last words. The other day, I watched Lord of War.
Oh, Nicolas Cage, right?
And I forgot what scene it was. But I stopped and I was like, if Mitch ever made it in Hollywood, he would have been the next Nick Cage. I forgot what scene it was, but it was something with his mannerisms and the way he was speaking. I was like, that's fucking Mitch.
Oh my god!
I forgot what it was. And this is not an insult. I want to be clear.
No. I mean, I haven't seen it, so I'm gonna go watch it tomorrow. Like that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, and I forgot what scene it was, but I remember thinking like, because you guys kind of had the similar haircut. And so the way he was doing his thing, I was like, that's Mitch. That could have been Mitch. No.
How awesome would it, if I did pursue it and I was like moderately successful in Hollywood right now, that movie that came out where the guy met Nicolas Cage?
Yeah.
Like that could have been me meeting Nicolas Cage instead.
In my notes, I put in quotes, if Mitch pursued acting, he'd be the Nick Cage of the next generation. And then after it, I put the biggest missed opportunity.
I'm trying not to blush right now. I could cry.
No, and then now because then I watched that was a week or two ago that I watched The Lord of War, and then I watched Face Off again because Face Off's like in my top 5.
Was it because of the meme I sent you of Nicolas Cage through the ages?
That too, but no, like Face Off's literally like one of my favorite movies. It's in my top 5.
I know you've mentioned it. I know you love it.
I'll mention it again. Face Off's in my top 5.
Good movie.
So I watched it again after Lord of War and just watching Nick Cage work, I was like, that's fucking Mitch. Like, Mitch could be the next Nick Cage.
I'm blushing right now. Stop it. This is hilarious.
And we'll go out on that. Mitch is blushing, so I'll take us out. Thank you for listening to us to ramble. This is kind of one of the longer episodes we've had.
Yeah.
Covered a lot of ground.
You know what? It's a good one. Yeah. Give up on your dreams and don't drive slow in the left lane. And for God's sake, don't go into the express lane if you have more than 15 items.
Don't text and drive. Drink and drive instead. Give up on your dreams.
Yes, please. Thank you. Save a life. Drink and drive.